theyeshiva.net.
In Yiddishkeit, we have two structures. The structure of the Mishkan and the structure of the Beis HaMikdash. Both structures were mandated by Hashem, and both of them represent places where the Shechina dwelled and dwells. V'asuli Mikdash, v'shachanti b'seichel. You'll make a Mishkan, a Mikdash, and I will dwell among them. And as the Gemara says, in Shavuos, Mishkan ikri Mikdash, or Mikdash ikri Mishkan. The word Mikdash includes the Mishkan, which is sometimes called the Mikdash. The Mikdash is sometimes called the Mishkan. They're interchangeable. So V'asuli Mikdash says in Parshas Truma, the Mishkan, because Mishkan ikri Mikdash. So that's the common denominator, that the word the Mishkan means from the word Sheichen, right? Sheichen ad, or V'shachanti, or Shechina, which means to dwell, to come in, to rest, because it was a place of Hashras HaShechina, where the divine presence dwelt. That's the common denominator between the Mishkan, which traveled with the Jews in the desert, and then for a few hundred years located in Eretz Yisrael, until it was replaced. The Mishnah says in Saita that all the parts of the Mishkan were hidden. They weren't destroyed, they were hidden. The beams and the sockets, and the curtains, the veils, the tapestries. The Mishkan that Moshe built was hidden, the Mishnah says, the first parak of Saita, and it was replaced by the structure of the Beis HaMikdash. We see, however, that the structures, these two structures had a difference, had differences between them. And one of the major differences is not just the sizes were different, and one was mobile, and one was permanent, but it reflected a difference in theme. And that's the focus of the beginning of Ois Gimel of the Maimer. The Mishkan followed the hierarchy of creation. The hierarchy of our world is Medaber, Chai, Tzemeach, and Daimim. On top you have Medaber, the human being. Hashem tells Adam and Chava, Uridu, Pru, Urvu, Milu, Asaretz, V'kivshua, fill the world and conquer it. Uridu, your job is to take responsibility and ownership of the planet. The human being is responsible for the planet. Even the Gasayam, Chayas, Oifis, Kol Haremis, like he says in Parshas Bereshis. You're the crown of creation, which is not only a privilege, it's more importantly a responsibility. I'm not going to discuss now global warming and climate change and human responsibility to protect the planet, but despite the fact that the issue is politicized, the concept is a critical concept, that the human being is basically the mommy and tati of the planet. And the worst thing a mother or father could do is, this house, I don't know, these kids, I don't know who they are. It's not that way. You're the center, you're the centerpiece of creation. You're connected to everything. Adam, he says in Likkutei Torah, Tazriya, Shleimusa de Kula, is Kailil Kol HaBriya. The Adam is the one who's Kailil the whole Briya, and therefore connected to the whole Briya. So that's the Medaber, the speaking, the one who speaks. Under that is Chai, the animal kingdom. The animal kingdom are under the human race, below humanity. We call them Balei Chayim. Balei Chayim means they have a body and they have a soul, in the sense of they have consciousness and they have emotion and they have intelligence. Each animal according to its capacity, each bird, each fish, each rodent, every animal, every according to its capacity. And the hierarchy of the Balei Chayim is so deep that, again, I'm not discussing the validity of it, but to the point that there are many people who consider themselves very intelligent and sophisticated, and when they speak about chimpanzees, they call them our cousins, right? Our closest cousins. Our closest cousins. Now, there's a lot of distortion in that, and I think it does a lot to delegitimize the dignity and the morality of human beings and their responsibility, because the moment you say that a human being essentially is just an evolution of an ape. So that means there's no substantial differences. It's just we stand on two legs and we can do a couple of things that they don't do, and we can build museums. But essentially it's made of the same stuff, the same chemistry. But the point is that the similarities are profound to the point that people could make this mistake. And in terms of DNA, indeed, the differences are very, very subtle. Those subtle differences make the difference between heaven and earth, but they're very small differences. Under that, you have tzemeach. Tzemeach is the world of vegetation, of produce. Tzemeach means it grows. And that's the entire world of what we call the world of botany, the world of produce, whether it's fruits or vegetables or legumes or bushes or shrubs or plants of all types. Here, today they say that there's already consciousness and emotions in plants too, but which is probably true. But however, what's visible is growth. You see life, you see growth. A tree goes through cycles of life, and if you study it and you're aware of it, you could see the hibernation and coming back to life and death and life. There's a whole organism that functions in a very sophisticated way, like the animal organism and like the human organism, but without that display of consciousness and emotion and movement that an animal has and intelligence that a human being has. The intelligence is also there, but it's embedded in the nature of it. It's not visible in an outspoken way, the way it's by a person or even by an animal. And then under that you have daimim. And the word daimim means silence. Vayidoim Aaron, right? Aaron was silent. The word daimim is silence. And what that represents is that it's silent. In other words, no life is visible at all. It appears lifeless. And here again, we know that if you take a microscope and you look at the rock or at a grain of sand, or at a mountain, you will see internally in every grain of sand tremendous life in terms of its molecular structure and atomic structure and the atoms revolving and moving in great swiftness. But what is displayed? What is displayed is just a lifelessness. A rock can sit for thousands of years. It says nothing. It doesn't move. There's no growth. It is what it is. Solid, consistent, but silent. Daimim. Unlike tzemeach, unlike chai, unlike medaber. This is the hierarchy of creation, and each one serves the other. The daimim serves the tzemeach, because nothing can grow without soil. Soil is like the foundation. And afar is the classic example of daimim, earth or water or stones, avonim. These are all considered like the different minerals, the metals, the minerals in the earth that are not organic. That's called daimim. That serves the tzemeach. The tzemeach serves the chai, because most of the animals and fish and birds in one way or another, even rodents and insects and reptiles, are all using or benefiting from the afar and from the tzemeach, eating grasses, eating plants, eating herbs and so forth. And even those animals who eat meat and other animals, but those animals are being fed from the tzemeach. And then you have the chai, who serves the medaber, who is the crown of creation, serves in different ways. Either the way it's after Noach's flood, that we can eat meat or chicken or birds, or even in the sense of serving in terms of work, whether it's the horse or the camel or the or the donkey or the dog or the protection, whatever it is. But the human being traditionally, historically harnessed animals, sometimes justifiably, sometimes unjustifiably, with cruelty, to serve his or her needs. So this is like the hierarchy. Like every hierarchy, it could be productive and it could be destructive. It could be manipulative and it could be meaningful. It could be abusive and it could be dignified, like any hierarchy. But that's how it works in creation, and our job is to refine it. And this is not a small thing, because essentially this is the web of the planet. This is the food, what they call the food chain, or even more the food web, revolves around this cycle, and there's a very delicate balance of the ecosystem of how it works. Because if all the chais will eat, if the chais will eat all the tzemeachs, then the other chais won't be able to survive. There wouldn't be enough oxygen. Everything is very delicately balanced what's consumed and what's not consumed, and the balance is extremely powerful and extraordinary so that the system could continue working. And the fascinating thing is that the Mishkan literally resembled this hierarchy, because the builders of the Mishkan were people, and the Kohanim who served in the Mishkan were obviously human beings. They were behind it. They were the dream, the inventors, the designers, the builders, Moshe, Betzalel, of course, Eliyav, etc., all the contributors. But when you looked at the Mishkan itself, if you looked at the top, you saw Chai, you saw animal hide. If you went further down, they would drape down, the walls were made of tzemeach, atzei lumber, atzei shittim. And then when you came down, if you looked down, it was earth, because the Mishkan didn't have a floor. It was a transient floor. Wherever they were, they used the earth of the desert, right? The Mishkan was situated on the ground of the desert. So wherever you were, the earth, that was the offer. That was the foundation. I mean, that's what you stood on. So it literally resembled the Chai, the Tzemeach, the Daim, and it was all brought together by the human beings, by the Jewish people who built it. And that essentially is a very logical structure, logical even from a spiritual point of view. That's the Mishkan. We have in Parshas Nosim, in Ha'afar, Ashayir Bekarka HaMishkan, from the earth that was in the karka of the Mishkan, they would take for the Saita. You needed Afar, the offer of the Mishkan. Where would you find it? You would look down and you would take the earth. So that's Daimim, and then up Tzemeach, and then further up Chai. And of course you had the cloud, the Shechina that dwelled in it, which represented the divine presence that brings it all together. In the Beis HaMikdash, which is the permanent structure, unlike the Mishkan, it's called Diras Kva Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not called Oyel, but it's called Bayis, the ultimate home. The first Beis HaMikdash, the second Beis HaMikdash, and certainly the third Beis HaMikdash, here everything changed. And that is, the hierarchy became completely different. What? Basically, Daimim rose to the top. The roof was not made of Chai, it was made of stone. And the walls were not made of Tzemeach, they were made of stone. And the earth also remained Daimim. In other words, what happened was, Daimim was elevated. You had Chai in the Beis HaMikdash, you had Karbonis, you had Tzemeach, but that's all in the Avodah. You had meal offerings, you have animal offerings, but we're talking now in the structure. The interesting thing is Mishkan Shiloi. Mishkan Shiloi is the intermediary between the two. From getting from the Mishkan to the Beis HaMikdash, there wasn't a drastic transformation. There was a mamutza, what we call an intermediary. And an intermediary, as we learned earlier in the Maimer about the two-step types of Keser, an intermediary always has to have an element of the first and an element of the second, because if not, you can't be a mamutza, you can't be an arbitrator. If you understand one side, you don't understand the other side. Like we know in arbitration, the worst thing you can do is take one side, because then you lose the trust of the other. The moment a therapist makes one side feel that he or she likes them more and is on their side, then a lot of your work will be undermined. Because even if the therapist agrees, for both people to be able to grow in the process, there has to be trust. And for there to be trust, the person has to make both of them feel that he really or she really understands their position. The moment you say, you're wrong, you're right, you may win the battle, but you lose the war, because if the person is not ready to hear that, even if it's true, it's usually not true, but even if it's true, it's a process of trust. So that's the pshat. A mamutza, if you want to really be a middleman, meaning if you want to be in the middle, which means you want to bring two extremes closer together. You want this side to come closer to the center, and you want this side to come closer to the center. You have to always have two lenses that can see this world and see that world and bring them together. This is an important principle in life. People sometimes try to mediate and compromise. They right away take a side, and you lost the prize before you even started. A mamutza always needs both, and a real mamutza, therefore, is very deep, because he really has to transcend both. Because in order to be able to see both, you have to transcend both. Because if you don't transcend both, then you get trapped, you get stuck. That's why it's not so easy to be a mamutza. The Rambam speaks about derech emtsoyis, right? The derech of chachma is the derech emtsoyis. It's not about compromise. It's not about the good therapist trying to always compromising and never taking positions. No. In order to bring two positions closer together when they're so extreme, you have to go to a place that transcends both of them. And therefore you can bring them together. That's why he learned before about Keser, that Keser is a memutza between the Matzil and the Ne'etzolim, between Atzilus and beyond Atzilus, and therefore Keser has to have both components. It has to have the element of absolute infinity, and it also has to have the element of appreciating structure. And that's why Keser translates into the two dimensions of Atik and Arich, of Pnimius and Chitzonius. You know what I'm talking about, yeah? Cooked me around. I don't know if you're looking at me like a chimpanzee or Mishpacha, cousins, our closest cousins. So Shiloi was the intermediary. What happened in Shiloi? As we learned yesterday from Masechta Zvachim, this time we'll get it right, that essentially the tikra, the roof of Mishkan Shiloi varied from the Mishkan, and they reflected the Beis HaMikdash in the sense that it was made of stone, but the walls still reflected the dynamic of the Mishkan. Oh.
The walls were from stone. Urias were draped along.
Right, I apologize. I stand corrected. Yeah, they're right. So the walls represented the Beis HaMikdash, but the roof still maintained the hierarchy of the Mishkan. So when you looked up, you saw Chai. When you come down, you would expect to see Tzeimeach, but here it was replaced. It was replaced by the Avonim, right? Okay, everybody's sure? Sure, I guess.
It's missing the wood.
Which stuff was it you'd be? Du gedenkst.
In this class, we don't win by majority. We don't win by majority.
Majority can help about things that you're not sure. If it says, what's going to majority help? Majority is going to decide that the earth is flat. It's not going to make it flat. A boy once came to see me from one of the yeshivas here, and he says that the pasuk says, "Achir rabim lahatos." You have to follow the majority. That's what Hashem says. So there's 2.6 billion Catholics, 1.7 billion Muslims. Yeah, how many Jews? 14 million. And among those Jews, how many Jews believe in Torah and mitzvahs? He said a pretty small number. He says, what happened to Achirab Lahatas? Follow the majority.
But the other ones don't believe that.
And he asked it in class, and I'm not going to tell you what happened, but it wasn't a very, it was the last question he asked in class. So he came to me.
With you answer, so you have to start a new yeshiva.
So I explained to him that Chirab Lahatas means you have a court, they're having a legitimate debate, there's two sides of looking at it. The person is innocent or guilty, you're not sure. There's witnesses ahead, there's witnesses ahead. Did he lend him the money? Did he not lend him the money? Did he lend him $10,000, lend him $12,000? There's a debate, and this proof that. So you have to go Achirab Lahatas. Yeah, okay, very good, you're right. Kufyud Beis Amid Beis Vachim Elohoyer Sham Tikra Ela Beis Avonim Bilvad Milmaton Vayiriyas Milmaila. So when you looked at Shiloi, you looked at the roof, it was like the Mishkan. You looked at the walls, it resembled the Beis HaMikdash. It resembled what would be later the Beis HaMikdash, which means it was like an intermediary. An intermediary. And the place of Shiloi, the place of the Mishkan of Shiloi was in Yosef's territory. Shiloi was Yosef's territory, thank you. So what does all of this mean?
Near Shechem.
Yeah. Near Shechem, yeah, close to Shechem. What does all of this represent? It's not stam. The Mishkan was temporary, it was transient, it was mobile. So it could be made through these things. You're going to have a Mishkan of stone, and then you're going to build foundations, and you're going to attach it to the earth in the Midbar. What are you going to do? It had to be a mobile sanctuary. So the structure had to lend itself to be able to be disassembled and then assembled again. So when you have beams of wood, you can separate and put them on wagons and carry them and disassemble them and then assemble them together. The Beis HaMikdash in Yerushalayim was built in one place and it stood there for hundreds of years. And it was intended to be absolutely permanent. So we understand that concept. But like everything on the physical level, that itself reflects something deeper. It represents also the metaphysical structure. And that's the main point that's brought out. That's what we want to bring out here. And with that extra piece of information, that Cyrus, Kirish, when he rebuilt Bayis Sheni, the Chachamim see a tragic error that he made, which at the surface you would not seem so significant, that he insisted for a display of visible wood in the walls of the Beis HaMikdash. 3 rows marble, which is stone, that's fine, and 1 row wood. And the Chachamim attribute to it such a sinister motive that here the man who was considered the greatest friend of the Jewish people was already planning its destruction. Okay, so it doesn't work out, the fire should be able to catch easily, which is again quite strange. Kan koidim shehechmetz, kan la'achar shehechmetz. He became a shtik chametz.
Was it the Rutzel of Hashem that it would be there?
Leiv malachim v'sar. And the word the Gemara uses is achar shehechmetz. After he became like chametz, which is either vinegar or chometz or became sour. Like sourdough is what creates chametz, so it's also connected to chometz. Zoyer teig, it's called in Yiddish. Zoyer teig. Zoyer means sour. Sourdough. Yeah. Now indeed, Kirish never had to burn down his structure because at the end of Bayis Sheni, Herod, rebuilt the whole thing, and he rebuilt it in his own way. And that's the magnificent structures that Hurdas built all over Judea, all over Eretz Yisrael. You see a lot of structures. They're called Herodian era. He was a great architect. I'm a shugana, but an architect. Rasha Merusha, but he was a brilliant architect, and he built extremely magnificent things. And the point the Gemara says that Misha Laira binyan Hurdas Laira binyan Nami Yamav. If you didn't see the structure of Hurdas, the Beis HaMikdash, the way it looked after Hurdas's renovation, you never saw a beautiful structure.
And wood was missing now?
Yeah. So it says he made it look like waves. Idve de Yama. It looked like he used It says in the beginning of Baba Basra, he used marble, but he made it had a look of the waves of the ocean, Gali Hayam. And then he decorated it with gold. That the Chachamim were not happy about. They liked the waves. That's a whole separate shmuz. But not wood. He rebuilt it based on the Chachamim because he wanted to repent for what he did. He killed so many. Baba Ben Buta told him to rebuild. The end, yes. I'm saying Kirish's building never burned down. He wanted it, maybe you'll have to burn it down. Lapoil, it was burned by the Romans, but much later. 420 years later. What does all of this represent on a spiritual level? So let's apply it to the person's life, and then we'll see the connection here to the mind. Submerged perhaps, but not on the outside. Kirish's problem was, the mistake of Kirish was, that by the Beis HaMikdash there's a lav. If you copy the Mishkan in the Beis HaMikdash, it's an Aveira. You weren't allowed to. It's not just they didn't do it because who needs it? You weren't allowed to. In other words, it's not just a structural thing. You need stone. If you want a permanent building, it's better with Havanah. You weren't even allowed to have a supporting beam displayed. If you wanted wood, it had to be submerged. And that's what the Gemara says about Shlomo HaMelech. He also had wood, but the wood was on top, and the wood was covered with plaster, and the wood was submerged inside the edifice. And by Kodesh, it was all visible. And the Rambam makes it one of the lavim, one of the 365 prohibitions, not to have wood that's displayed by the Beis HaMikdash. Which, it's hard to understand. What's the Greis Zach? What's the big deal if you have a little wood? So the regular pshat, they would say, is because wood was used often for the asherah, was used for idolatry, but here it's not being used for idolatry. It's almost like all wood became porcelain and treif, and you're not allowed to have it. Like, such a bad thing, wood. Asherah, you're not allowed to have is wood that they turn into avodah zarah, a tree that they turn into avodah zarah. But here, obviously, that's not the purpose. No, a biblical. One of the loisasa, yeah. One of the loisasa. Sefer HaChinuch Tav Tzadik Beis. You could use a stone avodah zarah. So some say there was the minig they used to have atzei asherah in the Middle East. It was a common idolatry. There's explanations, but it needs biur. Why is it such a fundamental issue? Alpi pnimius, alpi nister. On a deeper spiritual level, this is what the Balatanya is explaining here. In a person's life, there's also doimim tzemeach chaim medaber. The four categories of creation exist inside of us. Because as ha'olam nasan belibam, as we said, the person is the pinnacle of creation. All of the world exists in you. The pasuk says in Koheles, as ha'olam nasan belibam. The entire cosmos God places in the heart of a person. It says in Avos de Reb Nasan, olam katan ze ha'adam. Every person is a miniature universe. In other words, as he says there, kol ma sheyesh ba'olam yesh ba'adam. Kol ma sheyesh ba'adam yesh ba'olam. When you read about something in astronomy and cosmology and geology and botany and in a jungle somewhere in Africa or in Australia, the last thing you should think is, this doesn't have to do with me. If you can't find that in your life, so then you don't know something about yourself. That's why the Baal Shem Tov said anything a Jew sees or hears is a lesson in Avodas Hashem. Why? Maybe I just saw something. So it's not just because it's b'hashgacha. If I saw it, God wanted me to see it. But it also means if it's something in the world, I'm a mirror of the whole world. I'm a miniature mirror of the whole world. And not in an arrogant way, in a responsible way. Because if the whole world exists in me, it means that I'm connected to it. I take a certain amount of responsibility for it. Yeah. But it's also beautiful. It's not just heavy, it's beautiful. Because it means you're connected. There's a connection. It's waiting for you. It's not, don't look at this in a Jewish guilt type of thing, you know? I know that's where we go right away. Guilt. It's not about guilt. It's about the beauty of the cosmos, how connected we are.
It's like the latest physical science, which is unified string theory.
String theory. Yeah, the unified string theory. And it's just the vibrations. Yes, Vayihi kenagin hamenagin. Vayihi kenagin hamenagin. That's the string theory, yeah? Yeah, and the string theory is really that connection. And that's the Chayav Adam Loimar B'Shvili Nivra Ha'olam. It's a Mishnah. What do you mean? The world was created for me, really? The world was created for me. Some kangaroo in Australia was created for me. And the elephants in Kruger's Park in South Africa were also created for me. So the pshat is that there's something in a person that is at stake, and the whole universe needs it. And there's a very deep connection. So this it says, Olam katan adam. Obviously, Reb Nasan from the Tanoim. Kol ma sheyesh ba'olam yesh ba'adam, v'chol ma sheyesh ba'adam yesh ba'olam. If it's in the world, it's in me, and if it's in me, it's also in the world. Obviously, not the same exact size and properties, but the concept, the energy is there. So doimim tzemeh chaim medaber exists also in the person, and there's the hierarchy in the person. Medaber represents the highest form of human expression. Chai is a lower form of human expression. Tzemech is yet a lower form of human expression. And then you have doimim. What's doimim? Doimim is silence. Doimim is lifeless. Dormant from doimim, maybe. I don't know. Anila yadeya, maybe. But it's certainly dormant. Yeah. That's why it's called doimim. And the classic example is, as he says, avonim and offer. Earth and stone are doimim. You just step on stone, you step on earth constantly. The earth doesn't say anything, the earth doesn't rebel, the earth doesn't revolt, the earth is just there. Yet in Koheles it says, Hakel Hoya Min Ha'afar. Everything comes from the earth, including Adam. Vayikach Hashem Elokim, Vayitzar Hashem Elokim es Adam, where? Afar Min Ha'adama. Hakel Hoya Min Ha'afar. And the whole miracle of vegetation and produce and botany comes from where? It grows from the earth. We call earth Mother Earth. There's a reason we call it Mother Earth. Mom is the progenitor, Aim Kol Chai, right? Chava is Aim Kol Chai, the mother of all living beings. So, it's strange. The Mishkan, I understand. Daimim is on the bottom. Daimim belongs on the bottom. Suddenly, by the Beis HaMikdash, which is the ultimate edifice of God, Daimim goes all the way to the top. What happened? It should be the other way around. They couldn't find another way to make the roof. We have one of the miracles in Pirkei Avos that the rain didn't extinguish the flames, the smokes of the Mizbech, because the Mizbeach was outdoors. Because the Beis HaMikdash had two sections. One section was indoors, that's what we're talking about. The Kodesh HaKadoshim and the Heichel. That was all indoors, it had a roof. But over there, the action wasn't so visible. Over there were a few things. They would light the menorah every day and burn incense every day. And that was it, basically. The Lechem Aponim once a week they would deal with. But the main action of the Mizbeach was all outdoors. The Mizbeach HaChitzon, the outside Mizbeach, right? Over there they offered all the animals and all of the meal offerings and the libations and the music outdoors. So even indoors, you want to have an indoors, you have to have an indoors. You could have found different ways of covering it. Dafka avonim. And as we see, you're not allowed to even have 8 boilet. What does daima mean in a person's life? At the surface, it would seem like the lowest. But essentially, on a deeper level, in the shirish, it's the highest. And because it's the highest, it always comes out in the lowest. Because kol hagavoya b'yoser yored lamata b'yoser. So therefore, what's on the lowest on one level, and it's really on the lowest, when you go back to the root of it, it's the highest. And therefore, in the Mishkan, which reflected reality, on one level, Daimim is on the bottom, Tzemeach is higher, Chai is higher. The Beis HaMikdash, which was a reflection of a different dimension of reality, it looked at things the way they are in their shirish, everything turned around. Suddenly, Daimim rose to the top. And there was no Chai at all, and even the Tzemeach had to be submerged. The Chai was Bechlal out, and Tzemeach was submerged inside. In other words, you can have Tzemeach, but the Tzemeach is in the Daimim. It's part of the Daimim. It's submerged. It's concealed by the Daimim. The exact opposite, polar opposite of the Mishkan. And in the Oisis of the Maimer, that a bias is usually built from Avonim. The ultimate bias, you can have a bias of wood. But the ultimate bias, the base Avon, like the Beis HaMikdash, is Beis Chayma, Avonim. Where the Levushim are usually Tzemeach. And Mazoin can be either Tzemeach or Chai. And on one level, Mazoin is so much closer to us, it's what we eat. We eat animal or we eat Tzemeach. Garments are even closer to us, and you don't wear garments of stones, and you don't wear garments of earth, and you don't eat earth. But the bias, which is furthest from us, is actually called Makif HaRachik, which is the deepest place. And it comes out Lamata in Avanim and Afra and Daimim. And that's the whole introduction to how it works in the Beis HaMikdash, to understand the mile of the Beis HaMikdash over the Mishkan and the Chisaron of Kodesh. So all of this are Isis. But what does this mean? And what do we take out of this? How do we relate to this? So here we actually come across a very powerful idea. And I'm just thinking how to explain the idea. I'm using a model. I don't know that this model is you could use a lot of models and illustrations, but I think this will help us understand it best. There's a debate, a long-standing debate in the world of psychology about what's the best way of treating people and their internal struggles. One process is known as psychoanalytical. Focus very much on psychoanalysis. And the other one is focused, it's called behavioral. And the difference, we understand the difference. One approach says, your pipes are stuck in your ceiling, yeah? You need a good plumber to get into the pipe with a flashlight. And durchton, what we call b'dikas chametz b'chayrim or b'zdakim. You got to get into the cracks and find all the chametz there and clean it up. The person's body has a lot of pipes. We have only 100 billion pipes. Not so many. 100 billion pipes to deal with. They're called neurons, right? Or nerve cells. Some even say there's more, but I think 100 billion is enough to deal with. And each one has a bahalach. They're all connected to the brain, and they all send messages all day, all night, non-stop. Plus 100 trillion cells. So what are you going to do with this? So psychoanalysis says, let's try to deal with some of the pipes. You go in and you analyze and you dissect. And of course, we have to go back to child, and we always have to go back to your mother. Mommy's always guilty. And matayv to your father, and if possible, the Zayda and the Baba. As long as you go all the way, go back to Chava and the Nachash and the snake, and you'll find it all. But it's really a very deep process. I know a person who's been in psychoanalysis for 40, 50 years. He tells me it's the highlight of his week. He goes twice a week to be analyzed, to explain every motive and why you said this and why you felt this and why you thought this, etc. And the truth is, it's interesting to speak to him because he's very self-aware. A lot of people are very not self-aware, but he's quite self-aware. And it says it's almost like his, people go for massages every week, and they go to chiropractic adjustments every week, and he goes for his psychoanalytical lesson every week where his psychoanalyst explains to him why he's crazy. Okay. Huh? You like it? Okay. It cost him $475, but if you put it on the budget, for was nicht. And the truth is, we all need somebody to speak to. Everybody needs to. Daiga belev ish yischena. Shlomo Melech says, when there's anxiety in you, you have to speak. The Gemara says yischena la'acherim. One of the interpretations. So this is not a new concept, but this is basically the process that believes that you have to go into the mess and try to undo it and find clarity. There's another shitta. The other shitta, it's more modern, is more behavioral. And that focuses on the fact that if you go into the deep, intricate layers and the complexities of the human psyche, and you try to excavate the sub-layers and the sub-cellars and the many strata of data in the human psyche, you may get stuck there. And really, a person should be focusing on actions, behavior, day-to-day behavior, how I live. And there's those who advocated the first and those who advocated the second. And ultimately, today, most will tell you that you need a combination. There's this there's the value in this, there's the value in this. Depends on the person, depends on the situation. Sometimes, if you completely ignore psychoanalysis, you only focus on behavior, the darkness is too deep. The person may not be capable. If a person is living in a prison, tell them behave. I can't. I'm paralyzed. You have to be able to deal with that. Sometimes, the body keeps the score. The body holds the score, yeah. And conversely, so these are big discussions and so forth. But there's really a third component. And the third component is a very powerful idea. And it's one of the ideas that the Baal HaTanya has in quite a few Maimarim. I'll just say it and then I'll explain it. And this is, I think, part of what he's saying here. What looks like doimim really touches the unconscious. What looks like doimim, that house built of stones, which doesn't even seem connected to you, really touches a place in you that you're unaware of. In the oasis of the Maimer, that which is makif le-makif, or makif harachik beyond makif hakarif. Where does it come out? It comes out in the lamata, in the lowest manifestation of life, where everything seems lifeless, which is daimim. Now, what is daimim in a person's life? Daimim in a person's life can also be called bittul, or it could be called silent commitment. There's two aspects in a life. Sometimes I do things because I understand that this is the right thing. I do things because I feel it's the right thing. I do things, I enjoy doing them or not doing them. In other words, there's an element of self-actualization here. I see the value, and through this, I become self-actualized. In other words, when I'm involved in this, I feel like I'm growing. I feel like a tzomeach. Or at least, I feel like a chai, I'm alive. Or I even feel like I'm a dabra, I'm a human being. But then there are moments in life, you can call them daimim. What is daimim? Daimim means silent. What is this in a person's life? In a person's life, it means that sometimes a person does something and I don't feel self-expression here. I don't feel any self-actualization here. I don't feel I'm growing. On the contrary, what did I just do? On one level, it seemed like I surrendered. V'nafshi ka'afal akol tiyah. I'm doimim. I'm silent. I'm mute in the process. On one level, it's taka the lowest. On one level, how do you compare doimim to chai? It's like dead. It's lifeless. It's silent. But that's deceiving. On the level of ishtalshalos, in the level of giluyim, on the level of conscious reality, there, yeah, of course, medaber, chai, tzemech, doimim. When you look at pnimius, when you look at the core, it's mamish the opposite. In the place of not nasav and nishma, the bittul hadas, the bittul haratzon, the suspension of the need for self-actualization to the truth that's completely beyond me, here lay not only the ultimate truth, but the ultimate truth of the person. And you see this in people's lives also. It's not pshat. There's psychoanalysis, and then there's behavior. And behavior says, listen, we don't have time for this. Let's just do things. It's sometimes much deeper than that. Behavior, which sometimes seems external, fake, superficial, dead, lifeless. It's just behavior. It's behavior. There's nothing there. It's chitzonius. It's daimim. That has a power to bring to life and trigger and rejuvenate and shock, like a shock, the etzem that is deeper than everything. Dafka behavior. The place that's unconscious, how do you reach there? You can't reach it through analysis. Analysis will never take you there. Analysis will take you to deep places, but very limited places. Sometimes very important places to figure out your patterns. But sometimes behavior, which seems external and not much there, what's the big deal? So you behave this way. So you smiled. So you smiled to your spouse. You came home at night. You're in a bad mood. You're overwhelmed. You're stressed out. Plus you have a virus. Plus you have a flu. Plus you have the headache. Plus you're congested. Right? Thank you. Also a therapist. We have a lot of therapists, by the way. That's why I have to be careful with every word, because they're psychoanalyzing me constantly. Right? So you say, and then you come home and you're completely not in the mood, not interested, but to something you learn how to behave to your spouse, how to respond when she gives you a Kabbalah's panim the way she gives you, or your child gives you a Kabbalah's panim. But that response, I don't feel it. It didn't come from me. It's daimim. I'm basically copying a script, right? On one hand, it's empty. On the other hand, on a deeper level, that emptiness creates what you would call, if you want to use the word, new neural pathways. It creates new dimensions. It almost brings to life a part of you that you need desperately, which is your makif harachik, which is your core, which is beyond consciousness. It's not fake it till you make it. It's not fake it till you make it. This fake it till you make it in a good way. There's also fake it till you make it that can be also not so, people sometimes fake it and fake it and fake it and still fake it. Yeah.
They call it neuroplasticity.
Neuroplasticity, yeah.
But neuroplasticity is a part of
nature. You know, one of the mistakes of the science of picture is like that we look at our brain as a computer, but it's not a computer. It's actually a neural network. It's constantly changing. We're changing it as we speak. It's not like a neural path created. It's like updated. So we can actually rewire ourselves completely.
To me, it sounds, when you're doing the right thing, you connect, even if you don't feel like it, you're really connecting to your true self.
Yeah.
I'm afraid to say this, but it sounds like davening.
You don't have to be afraid to say it. What do you mean by davening? What do you mean when you say davening? It's daimim you're saying.
Something.
You have to turn things like just behavior.
Yeah. Now here there's always an important qualification. A person could become a robot and a zombie just following other people's scripts. We're not talking about that. Then the daimim taka remains a daimim. Right? And that's why one has to be very sensitive, and that's why you didn't start with the Beis HaMikdash, you started with the Mishkan. Because if you start with the Beis HaMikdash, you have to start with the Mishkan. Because it's very nice. I could just tell you, your feelings don't matter. Your mind doesn't matter. Who you are really doesn't matter. It really, kachamar la'oil, kachamar la'oil. Gemara says, if be like a chamar la'oil, kasus lamasa, a donkey, a horse, take the burden and go, and this is what you do, and just follow a script. A daimim? Fine, be a daimim. The whole Beis HaMikdash was built from daimim. And the moment you say, but I'm not here, I'm not present, oh, who are you, Bichlal? You have to be very careful. That's the other side, and I'm emphasizing this because it could be very not healthy for a person. The daimim on one level is the lowest. In the Mishkan, the daimim was on the bottom. When one appreciates the truth of daimim, you understand that the shirish of daimim is higher than everything. But this is a daimim that comes from strength, from empowerment, from clarity, not from suppression and negation and subjugation. It's the daimim that allows you to liberate yourself from the finite parameters of your consciousness. And in that sense, it becomes the most liberating experience. That I'm capable of always connecting to a place that is beyond what I call right now me. Because the part that I call right now me is going to be limited by my consciousness. Not because I'm bad, but because I'm a limited person. And it's the daimim which is expressionless, which on one level is the lowest because it's expressionless. But on a deeper level, you know why it's expressionless? Because it's beyond expression. That's the koyach of daimim. The mata of daimim, the fact that it has no expression is because it comes from a place that is beyond expression, which is pnimiyus hakesser, which is beyond atzilus, which is atik, which is makif harachik, which is beyond consciousness. So just like the mitzvah of shikha is rooted in that place, just like malchus is rooted in that place, daimim is rooted in that place. In Torah Vayigash, the Baal Tanya says this was the chiluk of Yosef and Yehuda. Yosef means growth, lahoisif. Yehuda means submission. Oida, hoida, moida manachnulach, submission, surrender. Yehuda was very suspicious of Yosef. It turns out in history, Yosef had to be the king before Yehuda. Because Yosef's kingship was the hachana for Yehuda. But the ultimate is Yehuda. Va'avdi David malach aleim. Malchus based David. What was David? David is Malchus. David is daimim. Im lo shivisi v'daimamti. The Beis HaMikdash was built by Malchus based David. David and Shlomo. The Beis HaMikdash was daimim. Shiloi was Yosef still, and it was the intermediary from the Mishkan to get to the Beis HaMikdash. The intermediary was the Mishkan of Shiloi, where the walls already were from stone, but the roof was still chai. It wasn't from stone yet.
That's why Mashiach ben Yosef has to come first.
Mashiach ben Yosef comes before Mashiach ben David, yeah. Yeah. Now what happens? The Gemara says in Sanhedrin of Kuf Gimel, Yeravim ben Nevat. Who was Yeravim ben Nevat? When Shlomo passed away, Rechavim took over. When Rechavim took over, the people came to him and said, you got to ease the tax burden. Your father gave too many taxes for your father because he wanted to build the Beis HaMikdash. And Rechavim asked advice from two sets of advisors. The older senior statesman who served his father, and the young chevra that he used to hang out with in 7-Eleven, in the pizza shops. It says his old chaverim that he used to hang out, and they would play football in the park. The older statesman said, the people are right, you're not your father. Baruch sich, lower the burden. And the younger one said, no, go stronger on them. The older ones told them, the only way you're going to get the people's loyalty is if you show them that you're subservient to them. Im atatia eved. If you're going to be an eved for the people, you'll be able to be their melech. And the younger one said, no, you got to go with an iron fist. So what happened? They revolted. And the Jewish people split. And this split completely weakened the fabric of Klal Yisrael, and it caused the Churban Bayis Rishon and the expulsion of the 10 Shvatim. This happened right after Shlomo's death in the days of Rechavam. And who became the second king? Yeravam ben Nevat. Yeravam was who? He was from the family of Ephraim. Ephraim was the son of Yosef. The Malchus went away from Yehuda back to the way it was in Egypt, where Yosef was the king, and everybody was bowing down to Yosef. It went back to Yosef, although there was the Melech Yehuda, but he only had 2 tribes under him. Yeravam ben Nevat resurrected Avodah Zarah in the Jewish world. He built not 1 golden calf, he built 2, one in Dan and one in Bethel. He prohibited pilgrimage to Yerushalayim. He didn't want them to go to the Beis HaMikdash. He kept them away. He changed Sukkos. From Tishrei became Cheshvan. That's what the Gemara says in Pesachim. We learned 2 days ago. Because Yeravam understood that the most powerful thing that keeps tradition alive by Jews is Shabbos and the holidays. Because that's when families experience the tradition. They don't talk about it, they experience it. With the Kneidlach. With the Kishke, with the Kogel. Somebody once said, I used to be an atheist, but I became religious because they don't have any holidays. One problem he had with atheism, how can you make a holiday? What are you going to celebrate? The random mutation of bacteria, of helium and hydrogen? What are you going to celebrate? Well, you said Labor Day, but that doesn't always work. Not if you're Bernie Sanders. Excuse me for a moment. So what happens now? The Gemara says, Yeravam ben Nevat was, the Mishnah says, Chayta machtas harabim. It says in Sanhedrin, Kuf Gimel, he was from the Goine Hadar. Yeravam ben Nevat was one of the greatest of the generation. So the Gemara says in Sanhedrin that Hashem came to him and said, Chazor bach, do tshuva, v'ani v'ato ben Yishai netal began Eden. Me, you, and David HaMelech will stroll in Gan Eden. So Yeravam said, who's going to go first? So he said, David HaMelech. So he said, if so, I don't want to. So the Balatanya says in Torah Vayigash, which he references here in this Maimer, and that Maimer he references this Maimer, he says, a half moida de kavar. Because when you read the Gemara, there's something strange. When Hashem said, do tshuva, me, you, and Ben Yishai will stroll in Gan Eden. He said who's going first. You, Ani, Va'ata, or Ben Yishai. Then Yeravam said, who's going first? He says, David. Well, the first time around, Hashem said that Yeravam is going first. Second time around, God said he's going first. So if you don't understand how to read these stories, you say, oh, it's not Meduyik. Well, really? It's not Meduyik? God didn't know the order when he said it the first time? It's very Meduyik. But when Yeravam asked, it's almost like he ruined it. By asking, he ruined it. So the Alter Rebbe says, the richness of it is very powerful. Yeravam is from Yosef. Yosef is the king before Yehuda. You can't go to the Beis HaMikdash if you don't go through the Mishkan. You can't really surrender if you don't appreciate your personality. Because the ultimate surrender must come from a place that is deeper than the self, not lower than the self. The ultimate daimim is the daimim of the Beis HaMikdash that comes after the Mishkan. So Yosef has to precede Yehuda. In other words, the real daimim has to be one that follows Yosef, not precedes Yosef. Yosef is first the Melech, and then Yehuda could be the Melech. What does this mean in a person's life? The ultimate state of life is complete oneness. Complete oneness needs bittul hadas, bittul haratzon. A place where I say, I know nothing and I want nothing. And that's when you can start living. But if you start that way, I know nothing, I want nothing, I am nothing, it may be true, but it's abusive. Why? Because it's not true. The power of daimim is that it's rooted in makif harachik. When daimim becomes an excuse for intellectual death, emotional death, death of creativity, death of personality, then...
Why is Nasa before Nishma so exalted? We're starting with Nasa.
When Nasa and Nishma came after Yitzias Mitzrayim, after Kriyas Yamsuf, after the 10 Makkos, God didn't walk over to them and say, 630 mitzvahs Nasa and Nishma. There was quite a display of love. How does it start? How does Matan Torah start in Yisrael? He doesn't come and say, I want to give you this. Atem re'isem es asher asisi l'mitzrayim ve'esa eschem al kanfin isharim. Now, you want a real relationship with me, you want a real relationship with yourself, the ultimate relationship is going to be in Nasa, even more than Nishma.
That is step 2 already. What do you have step 2?
Always. Now, the emes is that the Yir Shamayim of a Yid, the bittul of a Yid, even on the lowest level, is rooted in the highest bittul. The lowest level of Yir Shamayim, or bittul, which seems expressionless, is rooted in the higher form, which is also expressionless. But the process of growing into it is Yosef, growth, and then Yehuda. Yehuda didn't understand that, so he thought Yosef is a threat. Yosef is not a threat. Mitzias is not a threat to bittul. Mitzias is a hachana to bittul. Real Mitzias is a real hachana to bittul. Yeravam ben Nevat knows everything. He's very deep. God says, do tshuva. And you, me, you, and David will stroll in Gan Eden. What's this stroll in Gan Eden? Strolling Gan Eden means, Balatanya says there will be a gilui ein soif. A stroll is like a pleasurable, it's delightful. There'll be a gilui ein soif b'ha'ar rabba v'atzuma, he says in Torah Vayigash, that you and David HaMelech and me will experience. So the Yeravim got it. I'm first, he knows it, but he says, mi berosh. Who's really first? Who's really on top? Is it me or David HaMelech? Is it the Mishkan or the Beis HaMikdash? Is it Mashiach ben Yosef or Mashiach ben David? In other words, at the ultimate end of truth, is it about Yeshes or Bittul? So he said, Ben Yishai Berosh, you got to be first now. Because at the end of Shlomo's life, they weren't ready for David yet. They had to go back to Yosef. They went back to Yeravam. You're first. But ultimately, it's Ben Yishai. Mashiach comes from David.
Meaning they didn't grow enough?
They didn't grow enough to be able to surrender. To be ready for Malchus Beis David, you have to work through Yosef. You understand? Surrender always must come from the place of the deepest power. The greatest people surrender in the deepest ways. Understand that. A small person can't surrender. It's too insecure. The greatest people will surrender in the deepest ways because they're the greatest people. Always, that's how it is.
You can see it even in scientists. The greatest scientists don't speak about Godhead.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll see. Huh? Yeah. The pseudo scientists that are not great, are still protecting tenure and working for the Nobel Prize and want to make sure the New York Times loves them, etc. But once you hit that point of greatness, and your only focus is truth, then you have to surrender. What does this mean in a person's life? What does it mean in a person's life? Sometimes what looks like daimim will be the greatest blessing in your life. It looks like external behavior. It's nothing. It's daimim. For example, so your children don't have a good relationship with you? Sit down every night on the floor and play a game. But I'm not in the mood. And it's not coming from inside. So what? It's actions, behaviors. So it's not a question of psychoanalysis versus behavior. Let me sit in therapy 5 years and figure out why I'm this type of father and why my kids respond this way. You could do that. But from Maisa, you're going to go to a deeper place in yourself that you didn't know about. You're going to get to your Makif Arachik. Now, some people are black and white. Psychoanalysis has a very valuable contribution to make. Because sometimes people have to understand why they're so messed up. That wasn't so nice. Sometimes people have to understand why they're so traumatized. Okay, that sounds beautiful, no? Much nicer. Not messed up, but traumatized. It's good to know. Why? For one reason. So you should know not to take it so seriously, not to worship it. It's just something that happened. It exists in me. It's very important. Behavior is sometimes very external, especially when you're copying other people. There's nothing there. In MS, Doimim brings out that which can't be expressed. And that's why it comes out in Maisa, in Bittel, which is also expressionless. Because if you would feel it, it wouldn't reach that place in you which is beyond feeling, beyond experience. The Hesed Nuchem. That's Ben Yishai. That's Ben Yishai. Yeravam wasn't ready for that. Yeravam, ultimately, at the end of the day, he wanted his eye to be present. What did Kodesh do? Now we'll understand the depth with Kodesh. We'll finish with this. Kodesh, he put wood in the Beis HaMikdash. It looked big deal. He wanted design. He wanted diversity. Marble, 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 wood. Marble, 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 marble. Your wife is a designer. She would also say the same thing, no? Huh? I don't know. Actually, it's nice to have plain marble, but Kodesh had his taste. Fine, he had his magazines that he used to look at. So the Gemara says because he wanted to burn down the Beis HaMikdash. He was a Yiddish kid. He was Esther's kid, according to many. So you want to, in case the Jews rebel, it's like a second plan B. In case the Jews rebel, the Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah Daf Dalet, if the Jews rebel, I'll be able to burn it. A weird way of building something, right? You build this beautiful mansion for your daughter-in-law and your son, but in case they rebel, you make sure you can burn it down and collect insurance. But in Kodesh's days, there was no, but it's a very strange thing. So the way he explains it here, it's a much deeper inyan. The second Beis HaMikdash was being built, but there was something rotten still. There was something not worked out yet. Shlomo built the first Beis HaMikdash and he made sure there's no eight sticking out. Kodesh wanted eight sticking out. What is this in Oasis of Chassidus? He wanted the yeshus to still remain. He wasn't ready for real bittul. I'm ready to have stone, but I need the eights. Now, we don't mind that there's eights. We like eights. We want growth. We want creativity. We want expression. We want life. But how is the eights in the Beis HaMikdash? It's inside the Evan. It's shakei bebinyana. It's part of the relationship. It's part of the bittul. God doesn't want zombies. God wants successful people. Part of real bittul is self-expression, self-actualization. He doesn't want you to be a nobody. He wants you to be a conduit of the infinite light. David HaMelech was not a shmata. David HaMelech was a warrior, as we explained. His whole power came from his powerlessness. The greatest leaders are the leaders who surrender, and they become conduits. But over there, the yesh is a chelik of the bittul. The eights is in the Evan. Kodesh wanted the eights to stick out separately. So the Gemara says, why? Because he was planning maybe he'll have to burn it down. What does this mean spiritually? It means, I control it, A, and B, you basically deprive it from its eternity. You deprive it from its eternity. The power of daimim is, because it looks dead, it never dies. Tzemeach, Chai, and Medaber can die. Daimim never dies. A stone never dies. Or in Yiddish, there's an expression, bittul kenish bottle werden. The only thing that can't be nullified is self-nullification. Everything else could be nullified. Metzias can be nullified. Bittul kenish bottle werden. The moment the Beis HaMikdash had the wood in it, it allowed itself to be burnt. What does this mean in a person's life? What will allow you to create eternal relationships that will never be destroyed is if you have the daimim. If my relationships are based on my feelings of when things are right, Some days I'm in the mood, and some days I'm not in the mood. The relationships, I'll build bridges. I'll burn bridges. If I want to guarantee the eternity of those bridges, I have to introduce into my life that element of bittul hadas, of bittul haratzon. That aligns you with the ultimate truth, with eternity, and that never changes. Because it's not based on ego. And therefore it becomes eternal. This was Kodesh's mistake. Because bittul kenish batel veren. But for that, I have to surrender my I. And that's not easy. Yeravim ben Nevat didn't agree. And we can understand Yeravim ben Nevat. Yeravim ben Nevat, at the end of the day, he said, I want to be there. I want the I there. It has to be in my experience. He wasn't ready for that complete oneness. It says Mashiach ben Yosef is going to get killed, the Gemara says, before Mashiach ben David. The opposite of Yeravim ben Nevat. Yeravim ben Nevat took away from David. And Mashiach ben Yosef, really Yosef, was a hachana for David. So the Mishkan Shiloi, which was by Yosef, is the intermediary between the Mishkan and the Beis HaMikdash. Because Yosef is the hachana to Yehuda. That's why it was in Shiloi. So you had the Mishkan in the desert, you have the Mishkan in Shiloi, and then you have the Beis HaMikdash, which was all avonim, all stone. Which stone is doimim, oisius. In davening, what is it? In davening, it's till Shemona Esrei and Shemona Esrei. Which part of davening is silent? Shemona Esrei. It should have been the other way around. Shemona Esrei is the ultimate. That's when everybody should scream. Even in Karlin. Even in Karlin, where they scream by Shemona Esrei, what happens? Psuka de Zimne schreist du. Yihi chvoid, Halleluja, schreist. In Shulchan Aruch says you count every word like pearl. But suddenly Shemona Esrei says, "Man eschreien, Baruch Atah Hashem." Huh?
So the inside yells.
Doimim. Shemona Esrei is doimim. Shemona Esrei is doimim. What says doimim? Silence. Why silence? There's a silence that's inferior to noise. There's a silence that transcends noise. In other words, sometimes I'm quiet because I'm not interested. You know, when somebody, I'm just not interested, I'm quiet. I'm not saying anything because I'm not really here. That's the daimim that's lower than noise. Then you have Psukkah Dezim, you have Birchas Krishma, Vayfanim, V'chayis HaKodesh, B'rash Godel Misnasim. Why? Because they're Chayos HaKodesh. They're Chayos. Chayos in a good way, I mean. Chayos HaKodesh. Chay. But then starting with Krishma, and especially Shemona Esrei, it already starts with Krishma, Vayikach Me'avnei HaMakom, and especially Shemona Esrei is the B'china of Doimim. Ka'avde Kamei Mari, Dalefnei Mi'atoimin. In other words, in the presence of the full truth, there's an element of silence. Not because the relationship is weaker, because the relationship is much deeper.
Silence, not in the form of silence. It's a silence in the form of tuning into the infinite. Into the real music.
And what's the ultimate silence in life? The ultimate silence in life was when I'm not even aware of that silence. And then I can really tune in because there's no I tuning in. That's the word of the Magid. Vayihi kenagin hamenagin, vatihi alav yad Hashem. When the menagin becomes a niggin. When the menagin loses his separateness and he becomes the niggin, vatihi alav yad Hashem. Verstanden, Rabbi Shula? It's very powerful ideas in life that the doimim touches the etzem. Huh? Why painful? Not painful. Not really painful. The yesh wants bittul. You're living. If the yesh was a real yesh, it would be painful. If the yesh was a real, but since the emes of the yesh is the bittul, because bittul is the emes, so when the yesh becomes batel, that's zufrieden. It's a burden for a yesh to be a yesh. He doesn't want to be a yesh. You think it's easy for an ego to be an ego? You know how much you have to invest in build. It's like Bernie Madoff's Ponzi schemes. You know how much money you have to invest? You know how many lies you have to tell yourself to build an ego? It's the cool, and you feed it with lies. It's such a burden. The moment you can tell the yesh, the dafsnish, it's fine, you can let go, he's happy. He won't trust you, so he won't tell you that he's happy. Because he learned already that he is everything. But once you really once you let him really go, machaya. People who don't have to live with self-consciousness, it's the easiest way of living. Huh? Walk into a room like a doimem. It's the best way to live. No self-consciousness. Mamash v'ya shtik doimem. They used to call you a glump, yeah? It's a beautiful compliment. You didn't realize. Was guckst auf mir wie a glump, wie a honim b'nei adam, yeah? You ever told you? Wie a honim b'nei adam? You never had somebody who told you that? You know what a honim b'nei adam is? By kaparis, we say b'nei adam yoshvei choshech v'tzalmavis. What does the chicken look like when you're saying b'nei adam? It's a chicken. It says, was guckst auf mir wie a hon in b'nei adam. One of those Yiddish self-esteem boosters. You're basically like a chicken. You're looking at me like a chicken by Bnei Adam. In other words, like an idiot, right? But the guy who told it you didn't realize what a beautiful message he was telling you. You should be able to be like a diamond.
He was looking at you like a chicken of Bnei Adam. He didn't understand.
Because he looked at himself like a chicken of Bnei Adam. But imagine you could walk into a room like a diamond. Huh? So there were people like that. Not that they weren't, they were fully alive. They were so alive that they were one with life, so they weren't self-conscious. You walk in, you're not self-conscious. I'm here, I'm not here, he's looking at me, he's not looking at me, I think this. They weren't disturbed with the consciousness that comes from ego. That's called real presence. Such a person is present beyond. Huh? Completely present. Because there's nothing to distract you. There's only presence. There's only presence. Usually I'm distracted, my thoughts, my feelings, I don't want to be, I have to be here. What are you thinking? Why am I? All these types of things, which is a very normal thing. We walk in somewhere, we're self-conscious. Even in Shina's Shul, people are self-conscious. Maybe less than other places, but still.
You have this in small children?
Small children, yeah. Small children have it, yeah.
The problem with presence, you can only be presence in the present.
That's true.
What looks like without self-actualization, you can't reach that state. So,
right.
In other words, without realizing your full potential, probably would never be in that state.
Right. The ultimate doimim comes after the...
Because otherwise doimim would be...
First doimim is on the bottom.
Like a laziness doimim.
And then la'asid love, it says doimim will be elevated to its shirish. Eishes chaya la teres baila. Yeah. No, it's brought that the Eishes, femininity, throughout history was seen as subservient to masculinity, but really in the Shirish, femininity is higher than masculinity. Ateres baila, yeah.
It's a concept by Kala under the chuppah. She doesn't say one word.
Yeah.
So Eishes Chayil, it refers to actually man's quality of or the feminine part of
Yeah,
man.
yeah. You see, throughout history, women were naturally more subservient to men, right? And it was part of history. Today, it's the opposite.
That's a destruction.
So you have two sides of it. You have the way it's misconstrued. But in the Shirish, the point is that as we come closer to the completion of things, so the koyach habitl that women have, which is more than men, which is why they're the mothers of our children, hakal hayamina afar. Just like the offer, you put the seed in, and that's where it gets produced. The seed of humanity is placed in the woman, who is like earth, and she produces everything. The koyach habitl is much stronger, and when the shirish of the bitl comes out, automatically femininity is elevated to a different place, but without sacrificing the value of femininity. In other words, when you only have secular language, you don't have spiritual language, so the feminist revolution can be very counterproductive. Because all it says is you need men, who said, Gloria Star, one of the great feminists, women need men like fish need bicycles. right? In other words, you don't need men, you don't need marriage, you don't need families, just become judges and lawyers and go to work at 8 o'clock in the morning with your attaché cases, and whatever men have, you should also have. But really, it was the most insulting thing for women. The most insulting thing you could tell somebody is that when you reach your ultimate greatness, you'll be able to copy everything that men do. You'll get paid like them, you go to the military like them, you'll vote like them, you'll serve in the highest levels of politics like them, you'll become the president of the United States. Great, beautiful. But what about what women have to give to the world? Which is irreplaceable. Yeah. Spiritual femininity is so much deeper. The Mayanukvin, yeah.
My question was, when you see that you have to be a self in order to be bittul that, in order to get the true domain.
Yeah.
Is that what the Gemara means, perhaps, when it says it's a topsy-turvy world, what you see?
Yeah. Olam hafuch ra'isi. The Gemara, yeah, a beautiful Gemara, right? That Yosef became sick, and Baba Basra Dafyud. He became sick, he was in a comatose state, near-death experience, what we call today. He came back, his father said, what did you see? Olam hafuch ra'isi. Topsy-turvy world. Those who are on top in this world are on bottom in that world. Those who are on bottom in this world were on top in this world. So on one level, it means that, sometimes people who are considered great in this world, next world, it's not that way. On a much deeper level, it's what we're talking about. What seems in this world as the lowest, in the Shirish is really the highest. Doimim is higher than Semeach Chayim Medaber. And that came out in the Beis HaMikdash, because the Beis HaMikdash was a foretaste of the future, of Yom Shekuloi Shabbos and Menucha. The Mishkan was a prerequisite. So the Mishkan actually follows the hierarchy of our world. The Beis HaMikdash follows the Shirish of the hierarchy. The root, the source, and in the source it's the opposite. Doimim is higher. And it comes lower, it comes down lower. Kol hagavaya b'yos yared lamata. So there's the home which is made of stone. It's not made of animals or made of garments of tzemeach. Or chai. It's made of avonim. Over there comes out the makiv harachik of a person. In your home comes out a deeper part of you more than in the food and in the garments. That's why a home is so important. A home is like that unconscious net of safety that allows you to be alive. When people have a home that they can call home, there's something at their core. It's not tangible. It's not tangible. It's like, if I take away your house, what are you missing? I'll give you a place to sleep. I'll give you food. You take away the core. I may have a bed. Somebody, you'll let me sleep in your basement. I'm not, right? But something at the core is missing. A person needs a home. Child needs a home. What does a home give? It's not just, I have a place to hang up my jacket. I can hang up my jacket in your house. You'll be nice. You'll let me hang up my jacket. Yeah, people keep their clothes in a locker in a mikveh. Fine, you can have it. I'm not talking about the practical stuff. If you have a big family, you need more place. But the point is, even if I'm a person alone, the home gives something at your core. It's like you have a place called yours that makes you you. And now you could be productive. Now you could grow, you could blossom. And that touches a place that's not so tangible. It's not, you can't always pinpoint it. That's why people whose homes are damaged, their homes are not safe places. There's something at the core that is very compromised. Yeah, you could run away to camp and you could go to a dormitory, you can go here and you can go there, and you'll be fine in terms of physical protection and safety, but you don't have a home. It's not a house, it's a home.
But on that deepest level, is the bias that you build in yourself?
Of course, it begins with yourself. Everybody have a beautiful day and a lot of atzlacha.
Can you connect the feminist movement with Dara?
With what?
Can you connect the feminist movement with Dara?
Oh.
Because it says that the Mashiach, they have the same neshama.
Maybe. In other words, there's the feminist revolution in the positive sense. And then there is,
The first Bishop was all still on the
how'd they burn it?
There's no word.
You're saying you can't burn stone.
Ask me this question a few weeks ago.
I don't know, did they burn it? Did they burn the walls and the roof, you're saying?
person was not there. In Hamikdash, good fire, science.
What does a fire do? Huh? Probably, I understand that the interior was burnt, you know?
Wi-Fi, we don't have Wi-Fi, I'm guessing.
That could destroy
There's
the.
a memory stick in it.
You want to know how they just physically destroyed the Beis HaMikdash with all these stones?
It comes with special notebooks.
In Shalim, I don't know, the buildings are all stone. So you don't have a problem with fire. And it's all built.
I see.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.